Welcome, everyone, to Buddhist Center. Here we are again. So wonderful talking about Lama Tsongkhapa's source of all my good, foundation of all good qualities, sometimes called begging for a mountain of blessings. And so wonderful that we can look at this text every week in a thorough fashion, using Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment to help us understand what's contained in each of these stanzas. And then Pabonka Rinpoche's short commentary and outline on this text is very, very helpful. And then if you can combine that with Pabonka Rinpoche's Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, you get a really thorough understanding of what Lama Tsongkhapa was trying to get at. And technically speaking, the best way to find out what Lama Tsongkhapa is getting at is to read Lama Tsongkhapa's larger works. And you'll find that all of Lama Tsongkhapa's larger works, are contained within this very, very short poem. So it's great that we can look at it and understand how we can kind of unravel all of the different meanings that are contained within. Because if we really analyze this text, we find the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, the great treatise on the stages of the tantric path to enlightenment, illuminating the intent, the commentary on Chandrakirti's entrance to the middle way, and the wisdom, the ocean of reasoning, the Ripi Jatso, Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary on Nagarjuna's Mulya Madhyamika Karika. And we're so fortunate, as well as the Serting, the Abhisama Alamkara commentary. So when we hear teachings that are very condensed, and they're by these great scholars, the intent is that we unfold them, unwrap them, so that we can see the beautiful present that's inside. And the only way that we're able to do that is to engage in studies and to learn more and more and more and achieve that wisdom we keep talking about, arisen from hearing, analysis, and meditation. And once we can really see how all of these stages of the path to enlightenment work together and serve as foundations for each other, then we can actually achieve the realizations that are contained within these texts. Without relying on the authentic instructions, we are not going to achieve any realizations. And as I heard Jeffrey Hopkins say the other day, if you don't start getting some realizations and you're not practicing hard, you're going to lose your fervor, he said. And he said a funny story about when he was in Tibet. There was an older monk, I think in Jokong or somewhere in there. I don't remember exactly. But he said, "Oh, I see you're very excited still. You haven't lost your fervor." And Jeffrey Hopkins, he said, "I'm older. I've lost all of my fervor, all of my, kind of joyous effort or fervor, whatever fervor," Professor Hopkins, whatever word, the person said to him, he was using fervor. Professor Hopkins said, "I really didn't know how to respond to that, so I just let him dig my fervor." So I thought that was very, very fun and also some good advice that we really have to practice this stuff. This shouldn't be something that we run to in a time of crisis, because it really doesn't work that well for that. It can give us a little bit of a peace, but the whole point, the intent of the Buddha was to get out of this mess altogether and to practice very specific types of meditation in order to make that occur. So before we talk any more about this, let's get into the 7-point Vairocana posture that we always get into in order to make our minds as clear as possible, so that we can get to a more neutral state, and the body can help support that in terms of clarity, it says in the text. And, our blood flows more properly, our winds and our channels, everything's aligned the way that it should be. So this helps us with the clarity of mind, because we know that the mind rides on the winds in the most subtle sense. And if we can then somehow make it so that it flows more freely, it will allow us to have more clarity of mind. And there's a lot more to it than that. But a clarity of mind is where we want to be. We're not trying to be spaced out. We're not trying to get to a sleepy space or a really strange place. We're trying to get to a very, very clear, realistic place from which we can build virtue on. And normally we come into the teachings and we're so scattered and our minds are just so full of the things we're attached to and the things that we don't like and why we don't like them and why we should like these things. And then we have all this neutrality going on and we just the whole time believe that everything has some sort of objective reality. And then based on that ignorance, we're ready to go and be attached to something or be angry at something else. So it's the attraction or the unattraction that we find when we establish things as having some sort of external reality that causes all of our problems. So let's try to combat that as best we can and get ourselves to a neutral space. And we're going to get into the 7-point Vairocana posture because this is a posture that helps support our minds. And when our minds can meditate for longer periods of time, we won't have the obstacle of our body not knowing how to do it. So right from the start, we want to get into the habit of setting meditation posture and most importantly, making sure that our back is straight. Vertebrae like a stack of coins. Great master Alan Wallace says that that's really so important when you are looking at trying to get shamatha and really trying to advance in terms of meditation, the alignment of the spine, and all the great masters say this, but Master Alan Wallace really emphasized that. So, and he's a great practitioner of shamatha, understands it very, very well. And if we don't get shamatha, we won't be able to be calm enough to look at the, what emptiness is in a real way. We'll never see emptiness. And if we don't see emptiness, we can't cut the root of cyclic existence. So the whole purpose of all of this stuff that we're doing is so that we can gain this wisdom that will cut the root of cyclic existence. And if that wisdom is combined with the beautiful mind of renunciation, we'll be able to achieve an abiding nirvana. And if that wisdom is combined with that beautiful mind of bodhicitta, then we'll be able to achieve the complete state of Buddhahood. And that is something that I'm interested in. I'm interested in fearlessness. I'm interested in infinite happiness. I'm disinterested in dissatisfaction and fear and pain and suffering and separating from things I love. I really, really would like to figure out a way how to end all of this and then eventually be able to help everyone end it all. Because I've learned, Kensei Geshe Wandak has taught us, His Holiness the Dalai Lama teaches us, and all those great masters teach us that the way to our infinite happiness, there's kind of a ceiling on our happiness if we don't work for others, if we only work for ourselves. And I think everybody would agree that as much happiness as you can get, 100% would be the best choice. So let's get into that meditation posture that can help us to start become Buddhas, because we have to, start to ripen our minds, because our minds, everyone will become a Buddha. We have a mental consciousness that can mature into that state where we remove the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. So we should just get started now because we want to have happiness and we want to be free from suffering. So we might as well start making that happen now. And in life, we're so accustomed to just trying to find something to make us happy and make us not suffer. It seems like a no-brainer to just try to be involved with this once we start to really believe it's true because we've relied upon authentic teachers. So 7-point Vairocana posture, and we're going to begin breathing in and out through our nose, breathing in all the way, filling the lungs and the diaphragm all the way, bring the breath all the way to the top, turning it around in a very natural fashion and exhaling. We're not trying to breathe in too fast, not trying to breathe in too slow, and on the exhale, on the second part, we're going to do the counting. So we're going to increase the counting, obviously. Breathe in, breathe out 1, breathe in, breathe out 2, breathe in, breathe out 3. And we're going to make sure that the focal object is what we're telling our mind it is, and we're focused on only that. So in this case, we're saying we're breathing in and out, and counting, and then we're going to add the front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni, about a body prostration length away in your mind. It's our mind that's meditating. We're not trying to have our eyes, our sense consciousness doing the meditation. We're meditating with our mental consciousness. So we're going to imagine with our mental consciousness in the space in front of us, a body prostration away, Buddha Shakyamuni at about eye height, about 2 inches tall, about the size of your thumb. Buddha Shakyamuni is right behind my head for anybody on any other applications that's not familiar with who Buddha Shakyamuni is. And we're going to only allow our minds to focus on breathing in, breathing out, the counting, and Buddha Shakyamuni. And if we see any scattering in our mind starts to get excited, or if our mind starts to get sleepy or dull, we have a little spy in our mind we call vigilance that says, hey, you're not on the object of observation, and then mindfulness brings us back to that focal object. So it's important that we know what the instructions are, so that when we're meditating, when we tell our minds what to do, if it starts to do something else, we rein it back in. And at times it can seem almost like a battle where we're going back and forth with our mind and just trying to grab it. But the more we do that, we're going to get it to the point where we're moving it closer and closer to that object where it can just stay on that. And eventually we'll be able to stay on that object, it says, for up to 4 hours and not move off that object. So for instance, we could in the future, once we get good at doing this and establish what our definite object of observation for our shamatha meditation is, we could then put that front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni in front of us, 2 inches, see all the details as clearly as possible in a static way, because our image in our front generation is static. And we wouldn't focus on anything else but that image in our mind, and it would appear to us a body length prostration away, 2 inches in height, the size of our thumb, about here. And it would appear in our minds as if it's right here, and we could hold that without any other thing going on in our minds for, it says, 4 hours or more. I am not there, so I don't want to imply that I'm giving you these instructions that I've realized. But these instructions were passed down to me by very qualified teachers who probably have realized these things. So I'm confident in these instructions, and you find these instructions in all of the great texts when you read about how to establish single-pointed concentration. Beginning with that object, beginning with, setting that object, and being able to set your mind on it with mindfulness, telling your mind, the focal object is the breathing in and out and the counting in Buddha Shakyamuni. I'm not going to forget that focal object. Mindfulness is not forgetting the object. So my mindfulness is not going to let me forget that object. I'm just going to focus on that. And then that vigilance, as I said, in my mind is going to check and make sure that my mind isn't thinking about pizza or something else when I'm supposed to be thinking about Buddha Shakyamuni breathing in and out and counting. So let's do that. Let's get into the posture and let's try to do the best we can to practice this. And no one's going to, well, maybe someone tonight will get shamatha. That'd be fantastic. But the point of this isn't so that, you take a short class and then by the time I'm into the discussion or the Heart Sutra, you'll be sitting in shine, calm abiding. No, this is just to practice it. So when you get home, or you're home, sorry, I'm home. Everybody's home probably. But when you get up in the morning or at night when you do your meditation, you're like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? Okay, my object of observation is Buddha Shakyamuni. That's what I'm going to choose, And then how do I do that? I make sure that's the focal object. I'm trying to get away from excitement and dullness, excitement and lethargy. I got a little spy in my mind, making sure it's happening, and I'm going to just keep bringing it back with mindfulness. So this is what you do when you are beginning meditation and trying to get your mind to a place that's calm enough to focus. And these are some really great instructions that were given to me. So let's get into that 7-point Vairocana posture and do the breathing. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. This is so wonderful that we can think about such a holy being, Buddha Shakyamuni, who's extinguished, abandoned all faults, and only has excellent qualities. This is the kind of being we will become. We all have Buddha nature. Think about that. We will become this being who has removed the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. We have a mind that can mature. Our mind is empty of inherent existence, just like the Buddha's mind is empty of inherent existence. The defilements, the stains of my mind are adventitious defilements. They can be removed. They are not the nature of my mind. The nature of my mind is empty of inherent existence, of objective existence. Therefore, it can mature. If it wasn't empty, it couldn't mature. We've been presented with all of these teachings so clearly. We're so fortunate. Think about the reason that you came to Buddhism, the reason that you started to seek out answers. Think about the pains, the dissatisfaction, the unanswered questions. We're so fortunate that Buddha Shakyamuni taught the Four Noble Truths. Buddha Shakyamuni stated that this is the superior truth of suffering. Showed us that we're moving so quickly. We can't even imagine how fast we're moving towards birth, aging, sickness, and death. Any minute we'll be separated from pleasant things and meet with unpleasant things. Any moment we're going to have various types of suffering of this body and this mind. Any moment there'll be something we want we don't get. When will I be sick again? Any moment. When will I die? Could be any moment. When will I be reborn again? Could be in a few moments. We start to really understand what this means, that we're moving so fast towards these things. We think we have so much time on our hands, yet we don't. What we have is the uncertainty of cyclic existence. What we have is rebirth. What we have is dissatisfaction. What we have is shucking off bodies. This body I hold so dear, I'll shuck off, and my mind will carry on. And I pay such little attention to my mind. I pay so much attention to this body, but my mind is what carries on. My mind will believe it's someone else, something else, a different being when I shuck off this body. Who will my mind think it is? Who will my mind think I am? Will it think I'm a hell being? Will it think I'm a hungry ghost or an animal? Or a human again? Or a demigod or a god? Who will I think I am? It certainly won't be this body. We've been taught that time and time again by Samsara. We've watched all slowly but surely all of our loved ones pass away. Or if we're the older ones, we pass away and then the younger ones have to bear that suffering. Or we die prematurely. And when that time comes, we're all alone once again, being thrust so quickly through cyclic existence, through the cycle, over and over and over again. High to low and low to high. Usually low to low to low to low to high to low. And we're all alone. Nothing that we think is so important in this life usually can help us at the time of death. Our friends can't help. Our material things can't help. This body is what kills us in the end. This body is what breaks, whether it's prematurely or it's old age. This body is what breaks and kills us. And with all of this evidence, we still stay complacent. The holy beings that we see with that glow in their eyes didn't become holy beings like this. They became holy beings because they practiced. We have so much uncertainty. That gross suffering, the suffering of suffering. This body and the mind suffering, those gross sufferings that we all know about. We think that's it. But then we come to realize that the Buddha told us that all of the things that we find to be happiness in cyclic existence are a form of suffering. And when we investigate it very thoroughly, I think that you'll agree, and we'll talk more about that later. And then the pervasive compounded suffering that keeps throwing us over and over and over again, no matter where we are in cyclic existence, into a contaminated set of aggregates that we've been forced into by our contaminated karmas, afflictions, and their seeds, driven by the grasping at I and phenomena as being truly established. When will we become smarter? When will our mind only be full of wisdom? Then the Buddha stated that this is the origin of suffering and showed us that all results depend upon their causes and that suffering is impermanent. Suffering is a result and it can be ended if we end what causes it. And the Buddha stated that what causes all of our suffering is ignorance. This grasping at the I and phenomena as having some objective existence, inherent existence, intrinsic existence. Phenomena is somehow one with inherent existence. We believe this. And this grasping then causes our mind to have some inappropriate attention to things and become attracted to things we like and unattracted to things we dislike. And we believe it's all objectively real. And then that inappropriate attention turns into attachment. Hatred. When we find things attractive, we like them so much, we're attached. When we find things to be disgusting or distasteful, we hate them, we have aversion towards them. And then we create karma, contaminated karma, action through our body, speech, and mind. Pathways through our body, speech, and mind. And then we have cyclic existence, we have suffering, we have samsara. And we're so fortunate the Buddha said that this is the superior truth of cessation and has showed us exactly how to get out of cyclic existence by relying upon this is the superior truth of path. By relying on a path of wisdom, a liberating path that will allow us to end cyclic existence by cutting the root of it, by getting rid of the origin of it. And we're so fortunate that this has been presented to us. But everyone doesn't have these answers. We have them. We can choose to practice them. And we're so fortunate that when we do, we can achieve a state of complete freedom, a state of complete fearlessness. But the Buddha also told us that we could not only have fearlessness, but we could have infinite happiness too. We could have bliss as well. And that even if we were able to get rid of the afflictive obstructions and achieve that state of abiding nirvana by cutting the root of cyclic existence in the manner just explained, we wouldn't have fulfilled our needs or all sentient beings' needs. We wouldn't be able to achieve the highest amount of happiness possible in dependence upon only that. Definitely wanting to emerge from the truth of suffering, the 8 sufferings, the 6 sufferings, and the 3 sufferings, combined with wisdom will definitely get us out of cyclic existence. But then what about everyone else? What about all of those loved ones that we have? All those people we care so much about? When will they find a solution? How will they find a solution? We start to think about how important all sentient beings are. Everyone's equally important. Everyone's as important as I am. Cherishing them is the key to my happiness. And I find that when I look at beings who cherish others more than themselves, there's a very, very big difference between them and me. Shantideva said the Buddhas cherish others. We cherish ourselves. In shortening it, look at the difference. So we know that cherishing others is the key to our happiness. And if we could somehow take on their suffering, it could extinguish our self-cherishing attitude. And if we could somehow give them our happiness, it would be the way, it would be our pathway to bliss. Because putting others' needs before our own, we even see in ordinary cases where parents have a child and they'll do anything for that child. The moment they see that child being born, it's the most love and the most happiness they'll say they've ever felt. In so many cases I've heard. So we see there's a little taste of that, even in our limited kind of frames of reference within cyclic existence, to the fact that, yes, cherishing others and giving them happiness and so forth is really the way to my success. Putting others' needs before my own is the way to my success. And all sentient beings are so kind to me. Of course I should do that. All of the things that I have that make me comfortable are a result of other sentient beings' kindness. Think about the thousands and thousands and just the countless beings it would take to get all of the things in your home there, made, carried there, etc. You probably can't count that high. We start to see, oh, wait, there are a lot of sentient beings out there, and we see how many generations. We think about seeds planted in fields, trees. We think about all of these things. How many beings were responsible for our happiness? I must be responsible for theirs too. I'll take it upon myself the task of freeing each and every single sentient being. I'm going to do it. I've said to myself how nice it would be if all sentient beings had happiness in the causes of happiness. May they have happiness in the causes of happiness. I will take it upon myself the task of bringing sentient beings to a state of happiness where there are only causes of happiness. May the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas please bless me to be able to have the strength and ability to do that. And then we think to ourselves how nice it would be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. I will take it upon myself the task of making sure they're free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas please bless me to be able to carry out this incredible task. And then sit with that and think for a moment. Can you do this? Can you free all sentient beings from suffering? Can you bring all sentient beings to a state of happiness? I know that I can't. I'm in cyclic existence. I have afflictive obstructions. I have obstructions to omniscience. I rely upon the Buddha, who is the only reliable guide. All of the Buddhas in the universe are the reliable guides. So if I want to help all sentient beings, and I want fearlessness, and I want infinite happiness, if I want to fulfill all of my needs and all of sentient beings' needs, I must become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. So with this motivation to bring all sentient beings to a state of happiness and freedom from suffering, think very, very deeply and stamp your mind with this idea And try throughout the day over and over and over to stamp your mind with this idea, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Now we've made this commitment, and we know we have limited abilities at this point, but the one thing that we need is the wisdom. Well, the things that we need are the wisdom arisen from hearing, analysis, and meditation. Likewise, all sentient beings need the same thing in order for them to become Buddhas. So now from that mind of bodhicitta, where you want sentient beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness and freedom from suffering and the causes of suffering, and you want to bring them to a place of Buddhahood, imagine that you have infinite numbers of hands and you grab all sentient beings. Imagine that you grab all the hell beings, the 8 hot hells, 8 cold hells, surrounding hells. Imagine you grab all the hungry ghosts, bring all those beings here. Even if you don't believe 100% these realms exist, just put that kind of doubt to the side and just in a contrived way, bring them here. Bring all the hells, all the hungry ghosts, all the animals living in the ocean, animals living on the ground, under the ground, in the skies, flying around in trees, all those animals, all the bugs. Imagine they're all here. Imagine all the human beings are here. You bring every single human being here. Don't leave any out. You've taken bias and thrown it out the window. You no longer have this bias. May I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. There's no bias. Bring all sentient beings here. All the humans. Bring all the demigods. Bring all the gods here. Leaving out none. Any being who still has afflictive obstructions or obstructions to omniscience, imagine you're bringing them here and they're hearing exactly what they need, even if they're one moment before Buddhahood, to become a Buddha. Even if they're such highly realized holy beings that they're about to be Buddhas, imagine you brought them here and they hear just the thing that they need to hear in order to do that final leap from the 10th Bodhisattva ground into Buddhahood. Imagine they're all here. Now imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni explodes into the merit field. Okay? So now that static image of Buddha Shakyamuni is static no more. Now Buddha Shakyamuni is alive and is there, so proud that this is going on and so happy. And now imagine that all of the merit field is now in front of you. All the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Kensei Geshe Wanda, Geshe Lobsang Gompo, Demo Locha Rinpoche, Ken Rinpoche, Gen Gyatso, imagining them all here, imagining the holy teachers such as Geshe Dorje Damdu, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Geshe Aga, Geshe Mala Tenzin Ladrin La, Ani La Tupten Chodron, imagining Chado Rinpoche, all of these holy gurus in the space in front of you, any beings you consider holy, any lamas or gurus you consider holy beings, imagine them all in the space in front of you. Imagine the beings of the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya and Asanga and Basu Bandhu and Dharmakirti and Dignaga and Vimuktasena and Haribhadra and Shakyaprabha and Gunaprabha. Imagining all of those holy beings who have shown us grounds and paths and logic and how to behave ethically. Imagine the holy beings in the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Aryadeva and Chandrakirti and Kamalashila and Shantideva and Chandrashita and Bhava Vega. Imagining all these holy beings in the space in front of you, Sir Limpa and Atisha, the lineage of blessings passed down from those beings such as Saraha and Matripa and Tilopa and Naropa and Marpa and Milarepa and Gampopa, all those holy beings that taught us the real nature of our mind, how to look at the nature of our mind. That profound view lineage that shows the Madhyamika Prasangika view so clean and so clear. That ultimate final view, which is the only view which will cut the root of cyclic existence. Imagine all those beings are here. We're so connected to all of those beings. If we study the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, we've heard of all of these beings in some way or another. Imagine the holy beings passed down from Atisha to Drontompa and the Kadampa lineages, the beings of the Nyingma lineage, the Sakya lineage, the Kaju lineage, Galup lineage, imagining Padmasambhava and the Karmapas and Satya Kunganipo and Sakya Pandita, imagining Lama Tsongkhapa, Kirtapje, Jelsapje. It's so important we pay respect to these holy beings because they can continue to help us understand these things we don't understand. Supplicate these beings to help us understand things we don't understand. Imagine the beings of the highest Yoga Tantra, Yogic Tantra, Performance Tantra, Action Tantra, 35 Buddhas, all the protector deities. All these beings are in the space in front of you. And they're so happy. Finally, sentient beings are listening. They're all here. They're all here doing what it will take to have fearlessness and happiness. Usually we are doing what it takes to have fear and unhappiness. And now we're doing the opposite. So rejoice in the fact that you're here today. Rejoice in the fact that all of those holy beings are rejoicing in the fact that you're here today. Feel so connected to them. They love us so much. We saw it in the manifestation right before our eyes of that with Kensar Geshe Wandak, who cared so much about us, who was so kind and so gentle with us, and told us to go slowly, slowly, so that we could get to that goal of complete Buddhahood. He was so kind to us. Now imagine that from the bliss of the merit field, there's an eruption that's starting to take place of white, red, and blue light rays and nectars, starting to erupt out of the merit field, signifying perfect method, wisdom, and purification. Imagine that you and all sentient beings have a white Om on your crown, a red Ah at your throat, and a blue Hum at your heart, signifying your body, speech, and mind, respectively. Now imagine that white light rays and nectars from the bliss of the merit field start to shower down on you and all sentient beings, transform into white Oms, and dissolve into the Om at your crown and all sentient beings' crown and purify your body. Imagine red light rays and nectars shower down on you and all sentient beings and transform into red Ahs, and dissolve into the Ah at your throat and all sentient beings' throat, and purify your speech. Imagine that blue light rays and nectars shower down on you and all sentient beings, transform into blue Hums, and dissolve it into the Hum at your heart and all sentient beings' hearts, and transform your minds into pure minds. Now imagine, just for a moment, that we're all sitting in that state of fearlessness and infinite happiness that we will all achieve. This imagined state that we're in right now is a state that we will achieve. That pure place where the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience are removed is a state we will achieve, a state of being we will achieve through relying upon the practices that we're learning now. Sometimes the masters say, take a sigh of relief. We have a path, we have a way to achieve these things we talk about. It's not a fantasy, it's not a fairy tale, it's not something neat. It's something very real that will cause us to achieve. It's a path that's very real that will cause us to achieve these wonderful states. So, with that being said, let's read the Heart Sutra in English. Again, the Heart Sutra, the second turning of the Wheel of Dharma, explicitly teaching the Madhyamika Prasangika view of emptiness, the final view of emptiness, and implicitly teaching all of the paths, the five paths, or 15 if you want to say implicitly, the five paths of here, 5 paths of solitary realizers, and 5 Mahayana paths. But this is a Mahayana sutra, so the intent here is for one to be practicing the 5 Mahayana paths. But we know in order to get to the path of accumulation of the Mahayana, we have to have renunciation. So there are pre-steps. It's not like we just start. Oh, we're Mahayana, so we like Mahayana, so we're just going to start at the path of accumulation, bodhicitta. We know because we've studied so well the teachings shared in common with beings of small and medium capacity, and the teachings for beings of great capacity that just doesn't work like that. We have to engage in those common pathways of small and medium capacity, and then we will be able to achieve bodhicitta. Recognize that this Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge is explicitly teaching the Madhyamika Prasangika view of emptiness, the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena, the lack of objective existence of all phenomena, a much more subtle view than was taught at the first turning of the wheel of Dharma in terms of selflessness. And then implicitly teaching the 5 Mahayana paths, the path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning. And these are the 5 paths that one will go through. And on those paths, realize emptiness at some point. We'll talk about that another time. And then see emptiness a few times, a few, not meaning 3. Just keep seeing emptiness and keep getting cleaner in terms of the coarse afflictions are gone, and then the greatest subtle, and then the medium subtle, and then the smaller subtle, and eventually we can get rid of all of the kind of afflictions, coarse, subtle, and then their stains. And the only way we can get rid of the stains is by having bodhicitta. If we only have renunciation, and we have the greatest emptiness in the world, we're going to end up in abiding nirvana. But if we have the wisdom realizing emptiness and it's coupled with bodhicitta, then that will cause us to be Buddhas. So the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice a profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind conscious dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times by means of Prajnaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way: Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasangate Bodhi Soha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family. Thus it is, O son of noble family. Thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas were rejoiced. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, the whole assembly of the world, with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Ngala jupe nejo damba ne nguje duchu ngai dudo jendru babalama hi bujinzi nezon gandro so la jazelo ga samara te chandara samara. Aga samara te shandara samara ya be te ata on gate gate parasangati bodhi soha papa goncha samji kai dembe doji she loba doji mebo doji shewa doji dragi baje metu beje danji she dingorye zoa gerin donja je je wa da medun be jendan wa dan tumba dojin bonzon zon joji dashi de jan den da de le jo. We'll make a mandala offering as a request for teaching. Remember, we're offering a perfect, most beautiful universe. And in that universe are all beings enjoying it. And it just would be something that would please all the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas so much if this is what was being offered to them. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples, as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth the Stuled Mandala to you, precious Guru. Sanje je danzo je je nan la, janju badu dani jazuji, dagi chushe jipe sonanji, drola benje sanje drubar jo, sanje je danzo je je nan la, janju badu dani jazuji, dagi chushe jipe sonanji, drola benje sanje drubar jo, sanje je danzo je je nan la, janju badu dani jazuji, dagi chushe jipe sonanji, drola benje sanje drubar jo. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. May this teaching be heard and understood in the language of all sentient beings, as it says in the prayer of noble conduct, the Sanchu Molang. Okay, so wonderful. We're all here again and get to look at this incredible text, the Yunten Shijurma, Lama Tsongkhapa's source of all my good, foundation of all good qualities. Again, Kensur Geshe Wandak taught it so many times to us. We've heard these teachings from so many other lamas, and then we've studied the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment and Namdru Lajang, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand by Pabunka Rinpoche. So we have really a good grasp on some of this stuff. And in order to realize this, we have to have the grasp on this stuff. Not just a pretty good grasp. We have to understand this incontrovertibly. So it's important that we, readdress these things over and over and over again. Think about what the Heart Sutra means over and over and over again. When we look at the Heart Sutra, we have to understand when it says no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue. We have to think no inherently existent eye. The eye isn't non-existent. The ear isn't non-existent. It's just not objectively existent. It just doesn't exist the way it appears. We grasp at it as appearing objectively, having some objective reality. But it doesn't have that. And we can see that in so many examples when we see that it's the subject that's really deciding what that thing out there is. And we can talk more about that another time. But we have to make sure that we don't misinterpret the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. At the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, that's where the Buddha taught the most profound view of emptiness. And he actually, at the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, he pulled back a little bit. Because the Bodhisattvas were like, wait a second, at the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, you told us that the Four Noble Truths were truly established. You said that it was the self that wasn't, there wasn't a true self of person. But you said phenomena was externally existent. And that things had some sort of external true existence. And now, in the Heart Sutra, at the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, you tell us that nothing has this. You tell us that the selflessness you talked about, person, you said, but you first told us that there was just this real coarse thing going on in selflessness, and said, oh, well, I thought it was just not a permanent, independent, unitary thing. And then I thought it wasn't this, kind of this self of person that had some kind of autonomous, substantial reality. And now you're telling me something different, Buddha. Now in the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, you tell me that nothing has this stuff. Nothing has a self. Phenomena doesn't have there's no self of person or phenomena. When you just told us the first time it was just self a person that wasn't truly established. Now you're saying that there's something external, and you're saying that nothing has any kind of inherent existence. What gives? And then the Buddha kind of walked a line between the two and taught the mind-only school. And we can get into more of that another time also. But we have to see that this second turning of the wheel of Dharma is very subtle and very easy to fall into nihilism if you don't know what it means. And the Buddha is not saying things don't exist. You have to be able to, I heard Jeffrey Hopkins say that the Dalai Lama told him that you have these kind of two things of arms on a chair, of nihilism and permanence, or nihilism and objective reality, objective existence. And your meditation is bouncing, hopefully, between the two. You're taking too much away, and now you're in nihilism. You haven't taken enough away from the object, and now you've established it as having some kind of permanent, unitary, kind of substantial existence from its own side. So it's very, very subtle, this view that we're trying to find. And do not oversimplify emptiness. Do not oversimplify things, and things just dependently originate. Oh, a bunch of causes and conditions. So everything's empty. Got to be very careful with this very oversimplification. Because when we find out that the only thing that will cut the root of cyclic existence is the right wisdom, we better get it right. And the wisdom that was taught in the first turning of the wheel of Dharma and the third turning of wheel of Dharma, if we just leave it at that and say, oh, mind only, or we leave it at Sautrantika and Vaibhashika, or even if we get to Madhyamika and we leave it at Svatantrika, the or the Svatantrika, Yogacara, Sautrantika kind of Madhyamika, Svatantrika. There's two kinds of Svatantrika. We still haven't gotten it right. We still think things are arising from others somehow. So this view that we're trying to get to is the only liberating view. The Vaibhashika view doesn't take away enough. The Sautrantika view doesn't take away enough. The mind-only view takes away externality, takes away a little too much, and still doesn't take away enough in terms of being the mind has inherent existence of some sort. And then the higher schools, right before the Madhyamika Prasangika view, don't think that things they refute this true existence but not inherent existence. They believe that the objects still have some ness to them so that you can name them what they are. So don't think you can oversimplify these things, because the people who are writing the books about these views that we find are very coarse, were geniuses and could convince you of anything. Just like we read about Nagarjuna and Aryadeva debating. And right before Aryadeva is to go debate Ashvaghosha, Chandragroman, before he's these names. He's a non-Buddhist. And Nagarjuna says, Aryadeva, you're not ready. Let me show you why. And he starts debating non-Buddhist view that this Ishvara school could debate. And Nagarjuna's taking on the view he doesn't even believe in and able to prove, just Aryadeva can't stop him. These are genius beings. And Nagarjuna's able, because if you don't really look at this stuff carefully, to take his root student Aryadeva and confuse him with coarse religion. Because that final view, that thing that you get at, that isn't nihilism, that isn't somethingness, very, very profound. So that's not what we're talking about, though, tonight. Tonight we're talking about the source of all my good, but it does kind of relate to the section we're in, because we're in the section on the medium scope. And we know that in the medium scope, the teaching shared in common with beings of medium capacity, that even though we're talking about the Four Noble Truths, if you only relying on the teaching that the Buddha gave about the Four Noble Truths at the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, All the scholars out there, nitpickers, I understand the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths all over the place to all other beings. You can interpret it through the Heart Sutra. You can interpret it through highest yoga tantra. It's what's really beautiful about the Four Noble Truths is they don't make us hit a wall. And what we come to find out is that the emptiness that the Buddha taught at the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, as I just said, is not enough. So the emptiness that I just talked about is necessary if you want to do the job that the Four Noble Truths say they can do. Show you suffering, show you what causes suffering, prove to you it can end, and show you how. If you want all that to happen, if you want that, that ending cessation to happen, you have to have this view of the highest Madhyamika Prasangika view. So even if you're like, okay, this Buddha stuff, and I don't want, it's too much for me. I just want to be liberated for myself. Even if you're in a school, even if you're the type of person who says, I just want an individual, I want a liberation for me. Sorry, you won't get that without the Madhyamika Prasangika view. Aryadeva makes it so clear that there isn't partial emptiness that gets you some kind of little liberation, and that you need the big emptiness to get you a better liberation. There's liberation, which is the root of cyclic existence being cut, and there's two kinds, an abiding nirvana and a non-abiding nirvana. An abiding nirvana is a here and solitary realizer, and Yentu Rangel's Tarpa liberation, and a non-abiding nirvana is the Buddha's liberation. Why is it called non-abiding? Because the Buddha's not just sitting there. The Buddha's able to simultaneously perceive the ultimate truth that the here and solitary realizer are doing, sitting there doing only, and when they come out, everything still appears to be inherently existent, and not be fooled, to be able to understand. So the Buddha can not only understand the ultimate truth, but can understand conventional truth simultaneously. And the Buddha is the only being who can simultaneously do that. A here and solitary realizer cannot. They can perceive one or the other. But the Buddha perceives both. And because the Buddha can perceive both, the Buddha then can help us. So the Buddha doesn't abide in nirvana. The Buddha sends bodies out. The Dharmakaya, we have the natural Dharmakaya and the wisdom Dharmakaya. And the wisdom Dharmakaya is that omniscient mind of the Buddha that has perfect wisdom, perfect love, perfect compassion, and then perfect power, perfect skillful means, and then can shoot those bodies, the emanation bodies out. The Sambhokaya, the Lonku, that perfect body that teaches the Arya Bodhisattvas. And the Tukku body, that emanation body that we could even see. And who knows who's doing that? Who knows if the mailman is a Buddha? Don't be so sure, Dharmakirti says when quoting the sutras. We only know our mind. Are you a Buddha? You're the only one who can answer that. Am I a Buddha? No, I can answer that for sure. I'm not a Buddha. I have not seen emptiness. I'm not a bodhisattva. I don't have renunciation. Only we know what our minds look like. That's why we have to be very honest with ourselves about what our minds are doing. And if we aren't honest with ourselves about what our minds are doing, then we aren't going to apply antidotes. We aren't going to really try to get more wisdom. We aren't going to abandon, this life. Interest in this life. We won't abandon that. We'll do it sometimes when we don't like what's going on. But when things are really great, we won't abandon anything because we won't see it as bait. We'll think it's great. We'll think it's just awesome, and samsara is awesome until that falls apart and we have to separate from the pleasant once again. And then maybe we'll have the pusu, the nejung pusu, the empty nejung, or sugar cane, like sweet on the outside, nothing in the middle. If we don't meditate on this, the sufferings, the 8 sufferings, the 6 sufferings, and 3 sufferings over and over and over and over and over again, we're going to think a new car is infinite happiness. We're going to think of a new something is all we need to do is get that, and we're fixed. So we have to condition our mind over and over and over again with truth. So let's take a look at the text. So Pabunka Rinpoche divides, as we always say, Lama Tsongkhapa's source of all my good into 4 categories. First, finding the Lama, how you rely on the Lama in thought and action, and then how you increase your kind of faith and reverence in that teacher to be able to get to that conclusion that the teacher is the foundation of all good qualities, that the teacher is from where all excellent things emerge. And that's why you have to have a very qualified teacher. And you have to, when it gets to, you have to seek out these beings. And that's exactly what I do. I don't have all of the qualifications. I would like to have all of the qualifications that our teacher Kensar Geshe Wandak had when he was in our world, but in our world had. I don't possess them now. I would like to mature to that level. So I need help. So I need reliable guides to help me with that maturation. So we see, in the first stanza, that's, the first category in Pabunka Rinpoche's text, Pabunka Rinpoche Dorje Chung, the very root of the path, which is how to take a Lama and serve him or her properly. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. Okay, so then that's the first. Now, stanza number 2 falls into the next category, how to train your mind once you've taken on a Lama. And then there's just a little advice that's given, like, hey, you have a human basis with 8 leisures, 4 that pertain to the human rebirth, 3 that pertain to the lower realms, and 1 that pertains to the higher realms. Sakya Randawa's commentary on Nagarjuna's letter to a friend, we find that beautiful breakdown. And I encourage you to look at it, and beautiful explanation of the realms of cyclic existence. And it definitely will make you not want to, if all of those things they're saying are true, I definitely don't want that. So how do we take, what's some advice? You should take the essence of this life, Lama Tsongkhapa says. First, bless me to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. So it's night. We're taking its essence. If you're listening, I don't know. Are you? Are you listening? I hope you are. We're taking this essence by listening to the Dharma, because we have to have the wisdom arisen from hearing if we want to get anywhere. So if we're not listening, or if we have any of the faults of the 3 pots, I won't go into them. Hopefully you know what all of those are. If you don't, go back to the beginning of the Lam Rim and find out really clearly, and make sure you're listening. Because you know what? Even if everybody was doing this, I wouldn't know if you're listening. Only you know if you're listening. If you're not listening, then I don't know. It won't affect my mind if you don't listen. It won't affect my mind if you don't do any of the stuff I'm saying. The only person that the stuff I'm saying can affect, for me, for sure, is me, for sure. I don't know what's going on out there. So I feel so fortunate to be able to talk about these things and to have had Rinpoche share all of this stuff with me so generously, so many teachings, and that it just got into my mind enough that I feel it's important to share it. And I'm so grateful that you've asked me to. Thank you so much. Number 3. So Pabunka says that this is like, we're getting into the second category, which is how to train your mind once you've taken a Lama. Pabunka says, first, Lama Tsongkhapa gives us a little advice. Hey, you better do something with this life you got. And then says, this is how you do it. And starts with the teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity, then the teaching shared in common with beings of medium capacity, then the teachings for beings of great capacity. So now we're into the third stanza, which deals with the teaching share in common with beings of small capacity. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first, thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. And in this section, we have a large emphasis in the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment on those lower realms and the desire to emerge from them. The Lord Atisha and Rinpoche started almost every teaching, it seems like, with understand that there are persons of three capacities, small, medium, and great. I shall write clearly to identify their characteristics. From the Shanchu Landun, and we see Atisha summarizes all of Buddhism in one stanza. Everything anybody could ever do in Buddhism that Buddha said, advice for ordinary people and yogis, as the tenets systems say. Advice was given for ordinary beings, and the tenets were given for yogis. When we look at the hell, hungry ghost, and animal realm, we can see the animal realm, and we study the hell and hungry ghost realm. We will certainly want to get out of it, and we know that in order to get out of it, we have to engage in going for refuge to the three jewels, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha, that perfectly enlightened being who's gotten rid of all negativities and only has excellent qualities. The Dharma, which is the cessation of suffering and those true paths leading to cessation. And the Sangha, those Arya beings who've seen emptiness, the hearers, solitary realizers, bodhisattvas, and Buddhas who've seen emptiness directly, those superior beings. We go for refuge to those beings. We engage in ethical behavior that abandons the 10 non-virtuous activities. We abandon the 10 non-virtuous activities because we know that non-virtue causes suffering, and what those deeds will bring to me follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. So we engage in virtuous activities. Help me stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do, and try and carry out instead each and every good that we may. Because virtue causes happiness. Non-virtue causes suffering, and the greatest sufferings are the rebirth we'll be thrown into by our non-virtues in the lower realms of cyclic existence. So when we look at samsara, we divide it into 6 different realms. So cyclic existence, this word, samsara. What is it? If we look at Vasubandhu's Abhidharma Kosh, I think there's 5 categories, and they switch up the order of hungry, ghost, and animal a little bit. And generally speaking, we say 6 categories. So 3 lower realms, 6 categories, 3 higher realms. So we're just going to stick with the 6. There's no reason to give you like all these different options. We don't need to do that. Let's just say 6. And then we see in the 3 lower realms, hell, hungry ghost, animal. 8 hot hell, 8 cold hell, surrounding hells, hungry ghost, animals. We know there's lots of animals. Think about bugs, think about lobsters, think about bears. Think in big terms, and you're going to come up with a whole lot of them. And then you have the human realm. So the higher realms are, believe it or not, we're in the higher realm, are the humans, demigods, and gods. So when we look at those 6, you say, okay, why? What do you mean demigods and gods? The demigods are gods. They're just lesser. They're not as advanced. In terms of, we'll just say that they're not as advanced. And when we look at the gods realm itself, we see there's desire realm gods. We're in the we can also divide cyclic existence by desire realm, form, and formless realm. So all the beings in the first, in the first 4 realms, hell, hungry ghost, animal, and human, are definitely in the desire realm. Okay, so then we get to the demigods, desire realm, gods, and then when we get to the gods, there's desire realm gods, form realm gods, and formless realm gods. Okay, so that's why we say there's a desire realm, form, and formless realm, because there's the desire realm. We find all these beings up to demigods, and then we find gods who are the desire realm gods, form realm gods, and formless realm gods. And sometimes they'll classify the gods together, demigods and gods, because the demigods are gods, and that makes 5 realms. So not to be confusing, but I think it's important that we have some technicality around this so that we know when we say freed from samsara, what do we mean? and I was thinking of something really interesting today. The desire realm gods, the desire, very sensual pleasures in the desire realm are really what we're so focused on. And when you get up into the gods realm, in the desire realm, you don't really practice Dharma because everything's just so fantastic and you have so many sensual pleasures that it's almost like one sensual pleasure to the next sensual pleasure, the good smells, good things to look at, good things to taste, nice things to hear. Ooh, things are so soft. And that's all it is. So you really don't practice Dharma. And I was thinking, as human beings, we're trying our best to make a God's realm. Especially Westerners, we're trying our best to make it so that we just only have this pleasure 24/7. And what the problem with that is, if you don't study the Four Noble Truths, then you are going to only be baited by it. There's so much bait out there. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh, that's so ugly. Oh, that's so terrible. Get all that out of here. Bring all that in here. I want all that. I hate all that. Yeah, it's so distracting. We have so much stimulation in the West here. We have so many things that we could go do, so many hobbies we could have that are really useless when it comes to cutting the root of cyclic existence or a ripening path of renunciation or bodhicitta. So many options that can give us sensual pleasure. And when we aren't feeling okay, we run for it. Instead of saying, why don't I feel okay? I don't feel okay because some karma is ripening in me to make me feel bad. And how'd that happen? I did something previously that gave rise to suffering, and my ignorance is making it all possible. So instead of saying that, we say, what's next? What can I think has objective existence at next and run after? Instead of saying, wait a second, why do I feel bad? Really, why do I feel bad? Not because, I have a headache and, I get migraines or I have a stomach ache because I ate something. Yeah, you have a stomach ache if you ate poisonous food. But how did you get to that food that poisoned you and then how did you, because, like Geshe Aga said, is poison medicine? Is there a common locus between poison and medicine? Some beings can take things that other beings can't. Why is that? Why does a peacock become more beautiful when they eat poison? And it kills other beings when they eat it. Why? That's the question we have to ask. So next we get into the rest of cyclic existence. So the small scope deals with the lower realms and getting out. And then the medium scope deals with all the realms and getting out. Saying, okay, the lower realms are really terrible, but take a closer look at where you are and up. See what really goes on. See what's really going to happen next. Even if you're in the formless realm and you don't have any of the suffering or the suffering of change, you still have pervasive compounded suffering, which means, like an arrow shot in the sky, like Rinpoche always used to say, when the arrow loses its power to keep going up, it goes down. Likewise, those beings in the formless realm, they have incredibly strong karma that's needed to keep them in that state. And they will have to then be forced into another existence when that power of that concentration or the suppression from the concentration, they've renounced some sort of things. So that renunciation isn't real. So it's able to suppress things for a while and then they're born again. And that's why we have to make sure that our meditations that we do, I repeat, the meditation that we do must cut the root of cyclic existence if we think it's wisdom. It can't just be suppression. Just negating there's no self here because it's impermanent. No. I think that most people could agree with that we're impermanent. I don't think you don't need a philosopher for that. There's something deeper going on you need a philosopher for. It's deeper than it's not permanent, it's not unitary, it's not independent. In terms of the self, of person. Much deeper than that. How does the self of person even come about without an aggregate? Remove the aggregates, find self. Aggregates are phenomena. So do these have inherent existence? Just the self doesn't? We have to ask ourselves these questions. That's what the yogis, that's what the great practitioners ask themselves. And they get the answers. And then the answer is what their mind is. Saturated with truth. So, this is what I wanted to read today. And now we're at the medium scope. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them, but they cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts will lead me to recall. Let's just stay with that for now. Let's stay with that stanza number 5. And let's go from there. I want to read what Pabunka Rinpoche has to say about this. I find it very, very wonderful. Let me just give me 1 second here. I'm going to just read the next stanza. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddha's teachings. So, what do you mean? What's wrong with this life? What do you mean that bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life? Well, they seem good. They seem good. I'm attracted to that. That's good. But why am I attracted to that? And what do I do when I become attracted to that? What goes on? I'm all messed up. I find it attractive. I need to have it. And then I'm like, okay, I'll be happy when I get it. And then I get it. And then I'm not satisfied with it sooner or later. Or I'm totally satisfied and I love it. And then someone steals it. Or I'm separated from it in another way. So these things are the door to my pain. Are the things the door to my pain? My projection the door to my pain? My reaction to the external phenomenon the door to my pain? These are the things we have to ask ourselves. Believing that they objectively exist from their own side, they appear like that, causes us then to have this attention that's all screwed up to the details of them. And one of those details that we're wrong about is that they objectively exist. And that we don't understand that there's a subjective conventional existence that's going on. Yes, we can say those things exist. They're not non-existent. They exist. But how? Why does my dog think my shoe's a chew toy? How are these things how are they really abiding? Why does a hungry ghost see pus and a human see water and a god see nectar? Same body of water. It's not like it's just from the mind. There's nothing out there to see. God, the human, and the hungry ghost saw something there. Why are we all seeing something different? And then being so sure that's what it is. That's what we have to get to the bottom of. That is what we start to learn that can truly liberate us. And if we don't understand that the only way it can be pus, blood, and nectar is if it's empty of inherent existence, of objective reality. If it had a fixed reality, it couldn't appear as a chew toy to my dog. Right? The apprehenders got a big part in this show. And I encourage you all to really investigate how all this stuff is here. How am I here? Who am I? Am I just Jeff? When I pass away and I think I'm again who? Bill the donkey. I'm Bill the donkey now. I don't think I'll have as good a chance as Bill the donkey to investigate. Why do I think I'm Bill the donkey? Why am I Bill the donkey? Why am I only led around by my nose and live in fear that maybe something's going to kill me that's bigger than me? And always just searching out more food and shelter. I won't investigate why Bill the donkey suffers if I'm an animal. And if I'm a god, I won't investigate it. So all of cyclic existence is a problem for me. Is it not? And now I have a human basis with a mind that can analyze it. Why aren't we doing something now? It says, in the summer, great clouds crowd the sky, and lightning comes and lightning goes. The suffering called impermanence drags our life down a hill. Dispense with the sense of permanence of feeling prepared. The rain brings it on, the fortuitous moment when everything is just right, and a rainbow comes and a rainbow goes. The suffering called impermanence drags our happiness downhill. Dispense with looking your best and strutting around. A sudden sound brings it on, and an echo comes and an echo goes. The suffering called impermanence drags our fame downhill. Dispense with the hope for greatness, the hope for a name. They travel to the big city. They sell their wares and stop in some hotel. The guest comes in the morning. The guest leaves in the eve. The suffering called impermanence drags our friends downhill. Dispense with hoping to fit in with your friends and family. In the summertime, the bees labor and build up their hives, but anyone can see how they're wiped out in an instant. The suffering called impermanence drags our food and money down the hill. Dispense with trying to gather together all this money and food. The cycle, and then, so that was from Yang Gompa, the Victor Yang Gompa, a quote from Yang Gompa. And then Pabunka Rinpoche says this, and I want to read this. The cycle of life with its three different realms is absolutely nothing but suffering by its very nature. So what did we say? We need to know this stuff, right? If you want to read books, you want to know what they're talking about. What are the three realms? Desire realm, form, and formless realm. So we can see that the desire realm, we have the hell, hungry ghost animal, humans, demigods, and some gods, form realm, and formless realm gods. Okay, so no matter where you are in any of those places, whether you're a god, a human, or a hell being, or Bill the donkey, you have suffering. By its nature, by samsara's cyclic existence's nature, there is suffering. And last night, Tony at the Tibet Center said something so profound that samsara has no beginning but has an end. Nirvana has a beginning but has no end. So what does this mean? Okay, so we have cyclic existence, we have the three realms. Let me read this before I make another point, because I must read this, and I see time's ticking on. And I want to, though, get to another point that has to be clarified. It doesn't matter at all whether you take a higher rebirth within it or a lower. It's all the same. Consider carefully the truth of these words, then go and seek some way of finding freedom from the cycle and a way to smash your enemy, the afflictions of your mind. So this isn't gentle language. Shantideva talks about you're at a war, and if you're in a battle and you drop up your sword, you pick it up real quick. This is a war. If you lose your mindfulness, you pick your mindfulness right back up because your vigilance sees you lost your mindfulness. Pick up the sword of mindfulness again. Don't lose your way. You and I might have some delusions about getting it all together in this world. A good body, lots of things. I love Pabunka's writing. Power, fame. Regardless of how far we progress in these things, though, let's be honest. If we judge ourselves properly, we can't see that we aren't really much more advanced in our intellect or strength than common animals, than bugs or birds or whatever. These things are hardly something worth getting attached to. Nothing you want to hang on to until your dying breath. Nothing you can trust at all. Much less for you can even attain the ultimate pleasures and possessions of all cyclic life. You could become the mighty being called Pure One or 100 Gifts, or else enjoy all the many riches in the kingdoms of a world emperor. In the end, though it always turns out the way that it does in the Letter to a Friend and other such works describe it. The book, Letter to a Friend, I mentioned, Sakya Randhawa's commentary, it's in English, is on such a good description of all of this. And other such works describe it, wandering aimlessly around in a house of horrors, the three lower realms. And it talks about this house that you live in, and that the ceilings and the walls and the floor are molten lava. And no matter where you go, it's uncomfortable and you're being hurt. You find this description in Nagarjuna's text, or Sakya Randhawa's commentary. It really doesn't matter what kind of so-called good thing you can get in the world of suffering. Eventually, all it can do is deceive you. So contaminated happiness is suffering. It's the suffering of change. It's deceptive. It's the bait of cyclic existence. The new car, the new this, the happy this, the new shirt, the da-da-da-da. Just a little bit of a nicer cup. That old, I don't want to drink out of that old thing anymore. You must by yourself expose the lie. How do you expose the lie? You meditate on the suffering of change and pervasive compounded suffering. The suffering of change is the bait of cyclic existence. There's a lie going on in your mind. Phenomena is not lying to you. You're lying to you. Phenomena is doing just fine. You put your imprints onto it and make it whatever you want it to be. Phenomena is doing just fine. It's your relationship with it. What's your relationship with it? It says you must by yourself. I can't. You have to do it by yourself. I can't meditate for you in the morning. You can't meditate for me in the morning. You must by yourself expose the lie. You must learn to think clearly about all the problems these things always bring to you. So you hear me, the 8 sufferings, 6 sufferings is so boring. I've heard even students say, oh my God, Jeff and his renunciation talk, and and the suffering of this, and the hell, and the hungry ghost. According to Pabunka Rinpoche, according to Lama Tsongkhapa, if this isn't saturating your mind, it's just a hobby. You can do hobby Buddhism, but it's not going to produce, I think, the result that you're looking for while you came here. I'm not that interesting. Buddhism's just not that interesting. There's other things that you could toil around and talk about and, sip wine talking about out there. In time you will know that every inch of this suffering cycle is in its essence pain. Suffering of change, suffering of suffering, pervasive compounded suffering. Suffering of suffering occurs in the desire realm, no matter what. Suffering of change happens in the desire realm, no matter what. Pervasive compounded suffering happens in the desire realm, no matter what. And in the God's realm, at the highest peak, you still have the pervasive compounded suffering. Okay. By then you will have renunciation. Once you know that every inch of this suffering cycle is in its essence pain, then day and night you'll seek transcendent liberation, as Lama Tsongkhapa says. By then you will have renunciation, the kind that wants to reach the joy of the nirvana beyond extremes. Freedom in the short run from the sufferings of the 3 lower rebirths, and ultimately from each and every pain in the cycle of life. And it will be the extraordinary form of renunciation, not the rough kind that you get just from following whatever someone else tells you, not the one that stays in the mouth and not the heart, in words and in not truth. So let me read this again. And it will be the extraordinary form of renunciation, not the rough kind that you get just from following whatever someone else tells you, not the one that stays in the mouth and not in the heart, in words and not in truth. What we are requesting then here, said our Lama, is that our Lama grant us the strength to develop a very fierce desire and a strong and genuine wish to reach the happiness of freedom. The happiness of freedom, freedom from cyclic existence. Fearlessness. That's the happiness that we're talking about here. Fearlessness. Not infinite happiness, But that's happiness in this particular context. The happiness which is a freedom from the eight sufferings, six sufferings, three sufferings, all the realms of cyclic existence. The three realms, or the six realms, or if you say five realms, whatever you want to say, all of the suffering of cyclic existence. And once you achieve the state of liberation, as Tony said, Nirvana has a beginning and no end. And consciousness has no beginning. And this is the last thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to go over for it because it's so important. We have to believe this, or at least come to the conclusion that we can't disprove it. This moment's consciousness came from a previous moment's consciousness, from a previous moment's consciousness, from a previous moment's consciousness. We'll end up at when we were born. The previous moment of that is the intermediate state. Moments of that. And the moments before that are the birth before this. And we start to look at that, the previous moment. And we see that consciousness always has to cause consciousness. Consciousness doesn't come from an unlike source. Dharmakirti says in the Pramanavartika Karika, second chapter, that, things arise, consciousness comes from a similar class, not, things arise from a similar class, not from a dissimilar source. Consciousness comes from consciousness. It can't come from an external creator that's not consciousness. And if we're part of a bigger consciousness, we have to know everything that consciousness knows. So our own individual continuum is beginningless, because when you start going this moment, previous moment, you can't find beginning. And you leave it there. It's not possible. It's not logical to find beginning. You can't do it. Try. Don't take my word for it. Don't because someone else told you. It says right here. Sit down and find beginning. It's illogical. It seems like, it's illogical if it's going to end that it doesn't have a beginning. But it's illogical in this particular context when we're positing a consciousness that is just temporal moments that came from previous temporal moments. You're not going to find any first moment of those temporal moments. You would have to say it came from nothing, or it came from something different, a dissimilar class. So this is how we posit beginningless birth. If we don't believe we have all these lives before this, beginningless birth allows us to say that, in the previous lives, I've had all these different existences, and I have all this karma that allows for me to experience things now. And this continuum doesn't end, because consciousness causes consciousness that causes consciousness. It's not physical. Physical dies. Consciousness goes on. And that's why it's a beginningless, because we're in samsara. Samsara is beginningless, but once we achieve nirvana, our consciousness doesn't stop, and nirvana doesn't end. So our mind will be free forever, because our mind will go on forever and has no beginning. It's contaminated now, but when we put an opposing force to that contamination, it can end. And then from then on, it's over for good. And that's what we're striving for in the medium scope. Okay, I went over. Let's do the concluding prayers. Thank you for your patience. And we'll get to the bottom of this. We're not going to leave anyone behind. Make sure that you remember that. Always remember that. We're doing this. May I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Why do I want to become a Buddha? If I don't become a Buddha, I can't have infinite happiness and I can't have fearlessness. I can't help others. I won't fulfill all of my own needs if I don't become a Buddha. I'm only going to be circling around in unhappiness, for as long as, it could be 100 million lifetimes more, or in this lifetime I could end it and nirvana would start. Do I want to keep on going with samsara? Or do I want to end it and keep going with nirvana? That's the question. Make a concluding mandala offering as a thanksgiving for teaching. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I've collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drakpa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. And for anyone who doesn't know who Venerable Losang Drakpa is, that is Lama Tsongkhapa. May Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings remain in this world. Mime zewe tuchin chenre zi dreme chembe wombo jambe on dipo mali jumse saweda. Kanchin kepe sochin Tsongkhapa Losang Drabe jala zoa de. And any mistakes that I've made in this teaching, I apologize for. May they be purified by this recitation. And may any mistakes that I've made that gone into your ears may those just be erased and you not think about them by the power of this Vajrasattva mantra. Om Benza Sato Samaya Manupalaya Benza Sato Sena Bhatisha Dida Me Baba Sutukaya Me Baba Subhagaya Me Baba Anurati Me Baba Sarvasiti Me Baracha Savakam Suchi Me Kijam Shuyan Kurum Ha O Bhagavan Savadatakata Benza Mame Monka Benza Baba Mahasamaya Safa Ahom Ve. May we all be protected by Palden Lamo. Rinpoche said Palden Lamo is our protector. May we be protected by Palden Lamo. Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Junjo Galarajamo, Rama Jadaja, Junjo Rula, Hong Jo, Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Junjo Galarajamo, Rama Wajadaja, Junjo Rula, Hong Jo, Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Junjo Galarajamo, Rama Jadaja, Junjo Rula, Hong Jo, Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Junjo Galarajamo, Rama Jadaja, Junjo Rula, Hong Jo, Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Rama, Junjo Galarajamo, Rama Jadaja, Junjo Rula, Hong Jo, Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Junjo Galarajamo, Rama Jadaja, Junjo Rula, Hong Jo, Rama, Jo Rama, Jo Jo Rama, Dunjo Galarajamo Ramo Wacha Dacha Dunjo Rulu Rulu Hongjo Hong. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times. I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Gang ri ra we gor we jin jan dir ben dan de wa ma lu jong we ne chen re zi wan den zin ya zo yi shape zi de va du den yo ji. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all powerful. Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Jatsu, may you stay until samsara's end. May we never be separated from Khensur Geshe Wandak in all of our lives. May we meet with him or her as in the emanation form in ordinary worlds. And may we meet with him or her when we become Arya Bodhisattvas in that pure place where the enjoyment body teaches. When we always create all of the causes and accumulations necessary and keep that relationship, that samaya with our teacher in all of our lives. May we always be taught by Khensur Geshe Wandak in all of our lives. Please, please teach us in all of our lives, Khensur Rinpoche. And when we become Buddhas, because of the instructions that Khensur Geshe Wandak and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, all these holy beings are so kind to give us, Buddha Shakyamuni is so kind to give us, may we help be part of the crew that leads all of these sentient beings out of suffering to a state of Buddhahood, the way that we were led by reliable guides. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next time. Appreciate you all. Sorry I went over.